Time to crank up old Sparky. Well, you might be asking, who exactly is old Sparky? So before we jump too far into this story and this end of watch, I want to tell you who old Sparky is. Old Sparky is not just an electrical chair that sits and resides in state prisons all throughout the United States of America, but old Sparky is the current, the voltage, the wattage, the electricity that travels from one electric chair to the next, frying people who do horrendous and horrible crimes, so that we can serve justice to the victims and the victim's family. So, old Sparky, if you're hearing us, crank yourself on up, wake up. I know you've been asleep for a while, but it's time to get things moving, right? Right? Shouldn't we crank old Sparky back up? Raise your hand if you want old Sparky back. Well, I do. And if you don't, that's fine. Maybe you believe in old Lethal in the vein, Maybe you believe in old Gas. Or maybe you believe in boom, the old firing squad. Or maybe you just believe in life imprisonment, which, I believe in as well. But there are some crimes that I believe old Sparky should be brought back to life for. And this is going to be one of those crimes that I'm about to tell you about right here. And the dude I'm going to tell you about is Kelvin Simmons. That's right. Look at him, Kelvin Simmons. I don't want to call him an animal. I always go to my second reaction or my instant reaction and say, oh, this animal. But every time I say this animal about one of these, what word can we use? This savage. The only thing that comes to mind is that it doesn't do justice to animals. Because when I see animals, they don't act like these people do. Kelvin Simmons took a beloved father, husband, friend, and police officer from this world who was doing his job. Because Kelvin Simmons, look at him, this punk right here, bank robber, carjacker, before he became arrested now and accused of unaliving Officer Francisco Paul Flatts. That's right. And we're going to take a moment and have a moment of silence for Officer Francisco Paul Flatts right now. Take my hat off and let's have a moment of silence. All right. Officer Paul Flatts, Francisco Paul Flatts, was just doing his job and he came to end a watch, recently last year, June 30th, 2025 in North Carolina, Cherokee County, North Carolina. And I'm going to read directly from the police officer's website where they have end of watch for officers who actually go to their end of watch. And if you don't know what end of watch is when a correctional officer takes his final, duty or his final tour because he loses his life, in the line of duty. So detention officer Francisco Flatts was shot and unalived by a federal inmate at the Erlanger Western Carolina Hospital at 3990 East U.S. Highway 64, Alt in Murphy, North Carolina. Officer Flatts and another officer transported the inmate to a medical appointment. When the inmate took Officer Flatts, boom, and mortally wounded him. The inmate fled into the parking lot and drove off after carjacking a vehicle. Officer Flatts was transported to the local hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Another officer was also injured in the scuffle but is recovering. The inmate was apprehended after a standoff. Officer Flatts had served with the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office for 4 years. He is survived by his wife, who also serves with the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, 4 daughters, 2 sons, and 15 grandchildren. That's who this punk, you know what I mean? He stole the father, the grandfather, and the husband to people who really, loved their family member, man. And so my thing is this. If you don't know anything about prison, it's fully normal for prisons to send inmates to local hospitals to get services that the prisons themselves can't provide. And listen, I'm going to sit here and tell you it's a service that's needed, because I've been in prison many times and they couldn't fix the ailment or the pain I was going through. So a real doctor at a real hospital was needed. So in order to get you to a real doctor in a real hospital, they have to have 2 staff members, who usually bring you if it's in the middle of the night or it's an emergency. They shackle you up still and they bring you in a vehicle or a car, escorted, they're armed, and they bring you in to get services. Apparently, this suspect, he wasn't injured enough, Kelvin Simmons, to where he couldn't pull off his brazen escape plan. And in my opinion, I think this fool was thinking about this the whole time he was preparing for his injury. He knew he was going to get an opportunity to try to get out. Dude was on bank robbery charges in the feds with a carjacking charge. He knew he was about to get sunk. In all likelihood, you could look at this dude. He probably had priors through the roof. You know what I mean? So he knows they were going to throw the book at him. He was going to catch that smoke, But he planned this, I believe, and I believe that they can prove that this was premeditated. And if it's premeditated, it's first-degree murder. And if it's first-degree unalive, then he should get old Sparky and crank up old Sparky, North Carolina. Let's go. What's taking so long? We got to get these executions back up and running. Florida seems like the only state that can really grasp it. Them in Texas. Everybody else is lagging behind, man. Louisiana, y'all slow. I'm in Louisiana. They got some people on death row that need to go ahead and, get the justice that needs to be carried out. They were sentenced by a jury and by a judge to the ultimate punishment, capital punishment. And Calvin deserves that. And, Officer Francisco Paul Flats, man, this dude didn't deserve that. He thought this was just a routine transfer. And it just goes to show you how dangerous it is to transfer certain inmates under any condition. They thought this dude was going to get help from the hospital because he was sick. I don't know what his condition was, and they would the prison, the jail that he was being held at, awaiting trial for the bank robbery, and the feds, they were doing the right thing. But these fools like this, it messes it up. It makes people in society who don't know the better be like, they don't deserve to go to no hospital. And that's another extreme. I don't agree with that. Inmates do deserve medical care. A lot of the inmates, I want y'all to keep in mind, a lot of the inmates in there aren't Kelvin Simmons. They're people who are going to get back out and they're going to reintegrate in society. And if they're going to reintegrate in society, don't you want them to come out with a positive mindset that they're going to be a part of society? Because we don't want them to come back from prison to harm society, to hurt society, to cause more damage to society like this fool did. But this fool was facing a life sentence on bank robbery. He did that to himself. So I don't feel sorry for him, and neither should you. I feel sorry for Officer Francisco Paul Flats and his family. And it's a shame that this had to happen, And I've never been a police officer. I've never been a correctional officer, so I don't know what it's like to put the badge on. I know what it's like to be behind the bars, and I know what it's like to be doing dirt because I grew up, in New Orleans doing dirt. We did it all, and thank God that, he protected me. I believe in my whole heart and kept a stray one from catching somebody, and I've been involved in many boom, boom, boom shootouts. I know what it's like. I know the sound of a bullet when it whizzes by your head. I've been there, but, and this wasn't that case neither. There's a difference. There's a reason we have manslaughter, second degree and first degree. I know people who did manslaughter and they're back home. If you don't know nothing about manslaughter, it's where you didn't plan. It was just heat of the moment, passion. It just happened. You got in a fight, boom, you hit somebody and y'all intended to fight. You knock them out. You hit them the wrong way. They hit their head and they lose their lives. Well, that's manslaughter charge. And you should be punished for it. And usually manslaughter, carries the right amount of time, 10, 15, 20 years, But first degree murder, old electrical current. I remember back in the day, in New Orleans, they had an electrical company and they had a mascot. And he was like, I'm gonna try to find him. I'll put a picture of him right there. And the electrical mascot, he would be shaking up like some old lightning bolts and he'd be, remember that movie Shocker? Yeah, we don't want that to happen. We don't want Kelvin Simmons coming back like the dude from Shocker. Good grief, we don't need that. Anyway, man, what do you think, man? Do you have a heart and compassion to understand what I'm saying? That, Officer Francisco Paul Flats, man, he lost his life, and this savage did it. And I think this savage should get the death sentence. I want to read to you from the Department of Justice's website the charges that this dude is facing now. Convicted bank robber. So now he's actually convicted of the bank robbery. Charged with unaliving for killing Cherokee County Detention Officer Francisco Paul Flats II. Asheville, North Carolina. Kelvin Wayne Simmons, 49. This dude's done at 49. They need to be heading done and put him in the electric chair. Is facing a federal charge of first-degree unaliving of an officer for the unaliving Cherokee County Detention Officer Francisco Paul Flats II, announced Russ Ferguson, U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina. A grand jury sitting in Asheville returning indictment on October 2025, also charging Simmons with attempted carjacking resulting in death, escape, attempted carjacking, use of a firearm in connection with the crime of violence, assault, resisting, impeding an officer, and possession of a firearm with felon. Man, this dude's catching smoke. James C. Barnacle Jr., special agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, blah, blah, blah. The criminal bill of indictment alleges that on June 30th, 2025, Simmons did unlawfully unalive Cherokee County Detention Officer Flats while the officer engaged in the performance of his official duties and did so doing the perpetration. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited. People tell me often in my videos, you got to calm down. I ain't calming down nothing. This is just the way that I am, man. And I express myself this way. And maybe this video is too long, but I don't think it's too long to sit here and talk about a correctional officer. I was getting more into the charges, this dude, and it lists more of the charges. That's what it is. You can go on a Department of Justice website and type in Kelvin Wayne Simmons, and you'll see his charges. It's a long list, y'all. I just mentioned some, and the indictment includes all the evidence stacked against this dude. And I'll keep up with this case. I hope he gets tried, convicted, and sentenced to death. And my heart goes out to his wife and his family, his children, his grandchildren. And may you rest in peace, Officer Francisco. We're sorry we lost you. You were a good guy, and we want to recognize you on the Pen and the Shank. And this is a picture of him. Salute, officer, from an ex-convict to you for doing a good job. Man, give me a like and subscribe to the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, where we do stuff and we put our feelings aside, and we're not just enemies with every correctional officer or every police officer. We have the decency on this channel to recognize when a good man comes to an end of watch. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter to me if they have other correctional officers who won't recognize that there are good convicts, ex-cons out there like myself, and there are many others like us. You know what I mean? No matter what, I'm going to stand for righteousness to my best of my ability and justice. And crank up old Sparky. Let's get it.